Good afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of the Arrow Preacher podcast. I am your host, the Arrow Preacher, and breaking news out of Minnesota. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that after days of reckless speech from those in charge, that someone would try to be a vigilante? It makes me so frustrated and heartbroken because when stuff like this happens, nobody wins. Nobody wins, right? You have the right to protest in this country. You have the right to peaceful assembly. You have the right to go and stand on the side of the road and picket signs and all that, or not picket signs, but signs and all that. You have the right to do that. And please, by all means, go. Yesterday on my way home, I witnessed a newly formed protest starting on the corner on my way home. I was turning left, and while I was parked there, people would drive by and they would honk their horns, and it was an anti-ICE protest, which I disagree with, obviously. But here's the part that I have a hard time understanding. It is very quite simple at the base of it, okay? You're allowed to have your feelings, but that doesn't mean you're allowed to just solely act on your feelings, and that by acting on your feelings, you are completely justified in your actions. You're not. That's not how it works. We have seen so much rhetoric lately from the left in Minnesota. We have seen so much rhetoric in, like, even my local news, which I used to have a great deal of respect for my local news, right up until, I think, yesterday or the day before. I was reading the news, and it was about the 5-year-old up in Minnesota that was taken into custody by ICE. And they misrepresented the story. They left out very important context details that, without that context, makes it look like it's a very bad situation. And it's still a bad situation. It's still a pretty awful situation. But here's the part that they missed. The father left his 5-year-old alone and made a run for it. Definitely winning Father of the Year for sure. That you are more worried about yourself than the protection of your 5-year-old child. So what is ICE supposed to do? Just leave the child out in the cold? No, of course not. You take the child into custody. You protect the child. You make sure the child, who's innocent in all this, is safe. And there's a community leader that said, I'll take the child. No. As Dr. Evil said, how about no? You cannot just leave a child with a random stranger. It doesn't matter who they are. It could have been the mayor. You don't leave the child with a random stranger. You can't. Newsflash, there are child protective laws about such things. When I worked in security, there were times when children would be picked up, and it didn't matter who it was. It didn't matter who it was in the family. If they didn't have the other color-coded bracelet, you weren't getting picked up. Because it's a protective measure to make sure that the child goes to the right parent, goes to the right individual. You've got to make sure that you had that matching bracelet. You have to make sure that children are safe. You cannot just leave somebody with somebody who claims to be, of importance, because that doesn't matter. It doesn't change the law. People of importance commit crime all the time. Mayors commit crime all the time. I grew up not too far from Detroit, and we've had several Detroit mayors embezzle, steal, lie, cheat. That your position makes no difference on the legality. But people are using this, and unfortunately I saw several members of the Minnesota government just flat up lying about the situation, that they arrested the child, that they kidnapped the child, that they used the child as bait. None of that is true. Those are just flat out lies. It is one thing to omit details for a story, which is still wrong, compared to just flat out lying and making up stuff that is absolutely in no way, shape, or form true. The problem is this. I had a conversation several months back with someone, and they made the comment that they saw it on a news cycle, and of course if the news says it, it's got to be true, right? Wrong. Those days are long gone. The days of the news telling the truth are long gone. It is one thing that we have to understand, that it doesn't matter if it's the right or the left. You have to understand that the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle. Yes, can the right embellish as well? Can the right remove some context as well? Sure. Have they done it? I almost guarantee they have. And that being said, you have to have the ability to use your brain, use your eyesight, listen to all the facts, and try to piece together what the truth is. But if you've made a decision right off the bat, boom, I hear the news and I've made the decision and that's it. This is what my side said and I'm going to believe it just because this is what my side said. Then you have been indoctrinated. And if you have been indoctrinated, no amount of evidence is going to change your mind. So let's get into the facts of today. And I want to say happy birthday to myself. Because of the rhetoric going on, from early reporting it sounds like this. An individual who did not carry any identification walked up to Border Patrol and in some way, shape, or form, some sort of altercation took place. Well, that individual had from what I understand, a 9mm handgun and multiple magazines. Got into a fight with Border Patrol. And shots were fired. The man was shot multiple times. Paramedics tried to resuscitate him, and he succumbed to his injuries. Here's where we need to make sure we remember something, okay? Border Patrol is not ICE. While their jobs are similar, they're not ICE. But Border Patrol also has jurisdiction to be able to seek down illegal immigrants. Now, this individual who attacked them, I don't know yet who they are. I don't know yet if this is a justifiable shooting. I have not decided because I don't have enough information to go on, of what happened. Early reporting makes it sound like this is self-defense. And this is why I say that this is probably the truth. Because Border Patrol and ICE are not going out there and shooting indiscriminately random people. They're not indiscriminately shooting protesters. They're not indiscriminately shooting people who are even throwing rocks and stuff at them. Okay? They're not just mowing down members of the crowd. Because if they were truly Gestapo, every single individual in the crowd would be dead. Let's think about that. You want to consider them Gestapo. You want to consider them to be members of the Nazi Party of World War II. No, the Nazis would just open fire on a crowd of people and kill everybody. So you cannot say that these are the same types of people. They're not. Remember, these people are members of our community as well. But they are law enforcement. You cannot, in any law enforcement on the planet, you cannot go up to law enforcement with a firearm and point that firearm at law enforcement and expect to not get shot. I worked with law enforcement. I was in the military. If somebody pointed a weapon at me, guess what? They were going to get shot. Plain as day. Okay? It doesn't matter if it was Border Patrol or ICE or law enforcement or whatever. It doesn't matter. And now, because of people acting on their emotions, they're committing crimes by unlawful assembly. The Minnesota police have had to go in, I think it's Minneapolis police had to go in, and now they have to clear these people out because it's an unlawful assembly and it's gotten violent. People showed up with big buckets of rocks so they could throw at police. You cannot assault police officers. It doesn't matter what your feelings say. They have the law on their side. It doesn't matter if you like the law or not. That's the law. If you don't like the law, then it has to be changed. You cannot just go off vigilante style and decide you're gonna fight the man and expect that you're not gonna get killed. And here's the problem. Now another individual has died. Their family has to deal with it. The individual who shot that person has to deal with it, because I guarantee you, people don't just like killing people in law enforcement, because their job, and they know it is, to protect and serve. Now I ask you, if you truly care about innocent life, what about the myriads of people who have been raped, murdered? What about all the women who have been raped and murdered? What about the children who have been victimized by a lot of these illegal immigrants that we've arrested over the last couple months? Do you care about them? Because it doesn't seem like you do. Now, do we know for sure all of the facts? No. Now, one of the things that I hope happens is I hope all of these law enforcement officers are wearing body cameras, because that would make it really easy to determine what happened when these law enforcement officers wear body cams. And I hope that this is justified, but if it is not a justifiable shooting, I hope that the officer faces criminal actions if it is not a justifiable homicide. And what makes it justifiable is if that individual threatened law enforcement officer's life with deadly force, vis-a-vis a firearm in this case. But make no mistake, you can turn a vehicle into a lethal weapon. We've seen it. China, okay, I saw this video not that long ago of this woman. She said she went to China and she felt as safe can be. But what they don't talk about is this. China is not going to let the media run with events. But what they have not been able to hide is the number of mass attacks using a knife. They have not really talked about the attacks with using a vehicle, ramming into people, and killing bunches of people. So there are instances where people are using non-firearms as lethal weapons, and you can use non-firearms as mass lethal weapons. But again, you look at what's going on in the UK, where they've banned ninja swords, which would be a katana, which is really no different than, it is different, but it's no different than a long sword or, something like that. In Australia, they've banned machetes recently, which I cannot understand or fathom how you would ban machetes, which are good for cutting down trees. It's good for cutting down fruit. It's good for cutting down branches. It's good for self-defense against large spiders or snakes, or even a rogue kangaroo trying to attack you. Why would you get rid of such a valuable tool in the country where there are so many lethal, deadly animals in that country? All because a couple people used machetes in an attack. So once you start realizing that more people die by way of kitchen knives, bats, heavy blunted objects, stuff like that, the argument starts to fall apart about, well, if you just get rid of guns, it'd be okay. Well, let me talk about the gun thing real quick. If you get rid of all the guns except for the police, here's where I don't understand. You want to get rid of guns except for you want to have the police have them, but you want to disband the police and defund the police. But then you're thinking, well, maybe only the government can have that. And, well, then the thing is, well, what government? The government that you like or the government that you don't like? Because in a constitutional republic like we see right now, there are people that don't like the government right now, but they're the ones that have the firearms. So is it that you only like the government that you like? Well, what government do you like? And what happens when that government turns into a government you don't like? Or do you still want the government to have guns when they turn into a totalitarian regime and you're not allowed to go out and protest because when you go out and protest, they murder everybody when you go out and protest? Here's the thing. People say that they hate the United States, but here in the United States, they get to go out and they get to protest and say they hate the United States, even though they have the right to go out and do that. But if you were to go do that in many other countries, such as, I don't know, Iran, where they go out and say, I hate the government right now, and then Iran just starts to kill people by the thousands, it's funny that everybody's been quiet on Iran because they've got millions of people in the streets fighting with those with guns and they don't have guns. So what is it? And remember, wars long before firearms, still thousands and thousands and thousands of people died when they picked up swords and went and fought with swords. A sword is still a deadly weapon. And if you are proficient with a sword or an axe or a Dane axe or even throwing stars or throwing knives or whatever the case may be, what we're talking about now is, can you actually ban enough weapons to be satisfied within your own, potentially your own moral compass? I don't think you can. Because if you actually look at the amount of deaths that are not firearm related, it's very difficult for anybody to be able to justify the banning of firearms when in reality, if you like this country or you like to live here, so if you don't like this country and you're not willing to go anywhere else, you've got a problem. So here's where we're going to break this down, okay? Let's figure this out. All right. What is this? Okay. So, when you look at the homicide table, okay, 2019, you've got, and I honestly I don't think this is the right crime stat that I'm looking at. 2019, 13,927 deaths. All right. You have 840 other weapons not stated. Okay. You have 92 people killed by asphyxiation. Again, these numbers seem very low. I don't think this is nationwide. It says in the United States, but this seems very, very low. You have 840 by other. You have 92 by asphyxiation. You've got 600 people killed by hands, fist, feet, etc. Okay? You've got 400 people killed by blunt objects, clubs, hammers, etc. All right? You've got almost 1,500 people killed by knives or other cutting instruments. And sure, you've got 6,000 killed with handguns. Now, here's where it gets a little messy. Everybody's like, oh, ban the rifle, ban the rifle, ban the rifle. But you've got blunt objects at 397, okay? Blunt objects, clubs, hammers, etc. But you only have 364 by all types of rifles. This is not AR-15s. This is AR-15 plus 308s, 30-06, any other number, 7.62, any number of caliber rifles. This is all rifles combined. You have 200 by shotguns. Okay? But what I'm saying is, if you look at blunt objects outdoes the rifles by 30 points. So and even then, there are 840 by other types of weapons. That's not even close to how many there were in rifles. So you want to ban a rifle, but it's not even close to other weapons. And again, this is the FBI crime stats. So you want to look at, say, 2018, there were 305 rifle deaths. There was 928 other weapons. There was 712 hands, feet, fists, etc. Like fisticuffs. So 712 people were murdered by hands, feet, fists, etc. And if you were to add up the rifles, the shotguns, and the other guns together, you still don't hit the 712. Shocker. Maybe the rifle isn't the problem. Maybe guns aren't the problem. And yet, people want to ignore statistics, immutable facts, because they're inconvenient. See, the left has been pushing this narrative to get rid of guns. Well, why does it want to get rid of guns? Because it wants to be able to have the monopoly on owning guns. If the left is all about control and power, large government control of power, when you call the right a bunch of fascists, which group has censored people on social media? That's right, it was the left, because the left is the ones that went to the tech companies and said, don't let them talk about these things. Don't let them talk about the Hunter Biden laptop. Push the narrative of the Russian collusion hoax. Push that narrative. And they did. They all colluded together to push a narrative to the people. And they used social media as their weapon to do it. And everybody fell for it. So you want the people who are willing to lie, cheat, and steal, who are caught in lie after lie after lie, you want these people to be the ones in charge and the only ones with firearms. When you have the most transparent government right now, you've got the FBI, you've got the White House, you've got the Department of Justice, you've got everybody being incredibly transparent. This is what happened, this is who we arrested, these are the receipts. So they're being incredibly transparent with what's going on, and they're being open and honest about it. But the left colluded to make you think something and lie to you, to play with your emotions, to get you to act on your feelings, just like they're doing in Minnesota. Why do you think the left is intentionally lying about these events? They're lying because it gets people in their emotions. It gets people in their emotions because it brings people to commit anarchy and chaos. And if they caused the chaos, it's easier for them to blame the administration if they caused the chaos and say, look what you did. Well, that sounds very familiar to when someone actually goes and is abusive. If an abusive husband beats their wife, do you know what the first thing they say? Look what you made me do. Doesn't that sound familiar? The moment this chaos starts, look what you made me do. How dare you? This is your fault. If you wouldn't have been upholding the law, I wouldn't have had to go out and burn down that Walgreens yesterday. Look what you made me do. It's utterly ridiculous that the left is using abusive techniques to sway your emotions, where you're not using any amount of logic. Men can get pregnant, but then they say you can't, no uterus, no uterus, no opinion on abortion. But I thought you said men can get pregnant. And if that's the case, and if you can't define what a woman is, then why can't I have an opinion? And then people say, well, if you don't want an abortion, don't have one. Well, if you don't want a firearm, don't have one. Because your abortion is murdering another person, but my firearm doesn't guarantee that someone's going to get murdered. Because if firearms were really that dangerous, now let's think about that for a second, right? If firearms are really that dangerous, and you see that there are, 10,000 firearm deaths in 2019, so if 2019 there were 10,000 firearm deaths total, but there are 500 million civilian-owned firearms, which means there are more guns than people. 500 million firearms. So let's break that down. Are firearms truly the problem? If there's only 10,000 deaths out of 500 million, let's figure this out. $500 million deaths. Or no, I'm sorry. 500 million guns, and there are 5,000 deaths per year. There are somewhere between 12,000 and 13,000 deaths from alcohol-related incidences of drunk driving. Well, holy smokes. Do you really care about people? Because if you really cared about people, you would just ban vehicles, right? Almost 14,000 people. Let's cut it in half. Let's say 13,000 people. 13,000 people die from alcohol-related incidences every year. Holy smokes! If you're willing to ban rifles for 364 deaths per year, if you're willing to ban rifles on 364 deaths per year, but you're not willing to ban alcohol when there's 13,000 deaths at the hands of alcohol, what is wrong with you? Don't you care about people? All right, let's do this. You want to talk about caring about people? All right, in 2023, there were 40,901 deaths by automobile. That is 40,901 too many. Let's just ban cars. Oh, but you're not going to do that? Right? Oh my gosh. Thought you cared about people. No, you don't actually care about people. What you care about is your emotions, and you care about the control, but you don't actually care about people. All right. So while there's no actual particular numbers in this, let's look at this for a second. Okay? Okay. I don't know how to read this. Oh, fiscal year. That's FY, fiscal year. All right. Fiscal year 2024. So, a rough estimate, okay? Fiscal year 2024, out of illegal immigrants, 1,084 assault and battery, domestic violence. 2,844 were driving under the influence. Manslaughter, illegal drug possession, illegal weapons possession. And that's just, those are just the ones that were arrested after being here and charged with those things. That isn't including people who had been charged with those things before they got here. Okay? That's just once they got here. And we don't know how many, obviously there's no actual statistic yet, but we don't know how many illegal immigrants actually have been charged with murder and stuff like that. Now, those reports are become more popular. People are more likely to talk about it. But I think we need to be honest about the situation. If you don't like the law, you vote to change the law. And unfortunately, the left lost. But if you look under Obama deported more people than Trump has, by far. The numbers aren't even close. Same tactics. If you look at the CNN reporting, the CNN report that has gone kind of viral on the internet, it's the same tactics. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is the left, in order to garnish sympathies, and the left to garnish people's emotions, they have to choose somebody to say you're the victim and to fight for them, so that way people will get riled up in their emotions and flock to the left. But I've given you the numbers. Those are the stats. Between 12 and 13,000 people die of alcohol impaired driving casualties. Over 40,000 people were killed in 2023 in vehicle homicide or vehicle related deaths every year. There are between 400 to 500 million civilian owned firearms, And as of 2019, total firearms was only 10,000 out of 500 million. The numbers just don't add up to this being such a huge problem. And yet, I was just walking into the clinic the other day, and someone decided it would be funny to grab my cloak while walking by me and yank on it and almost knock me off my feet. For no reason. I was just minding my own business, walking inside the clinic. We have a heart problem. People think that it's okay to throw rocks at another human being just because they're upholding the law. Like I said, you don't like the law? Change it. But even the left won't change the law. They didn't change the law under Biden, they just ignored it. They didn't change the laws on illegal immigration. They simply just ignored them. Obama certainly didn't ignore them. In fact, under Bush, as Obama said, Bush allowed too many people to come in, so Obama had to deport them. And Bush was wrong for allowing that to happen. So I think we all need to take a breath. I think we need to take some time to start realizing that breaking into the country is illegal. And you can't say, well, you don't like immigration. No, I do. I'm married to an immigrant. Don't forget, the president's married to an immigrant. The vice president is married to an immigrant. So obviously, they don't hate immigrants. And you can't say this is stolen land. It's not. It was. You can't say that we're all illegal immigrants. We're not. There's a difference between settlers and immigration. Immigration is where you go to an already established, settled place. Settlers have to build from the ground up. There was nothing here when they got here. Okay? Native Americans were fighting one another. And not all Native Americans were enemies with the settlers. We know that because some of them actually helped the settlers survive the winter. That's how we had the first Thanksgiving, because we all kumbaya'd together. We understand the difference between settlers and it's not stolen land because nobody actually truly owned the land. Remember, most Native Americans were nomads. They moved around. And before we got here, long before we got here, the Native American tribes were fighting one another, killing one another. They weren't all just living in peace for land. So essentially, you just have a bunch of Native Americans fighting each other, and then you have somebody who's more technologically advanced come in and settle. Now, do I agree with the tactics that ensued? No, I don't. But it's not stolen land. If anything, it's more conquered land. But most of the land was purchased. Most of the United States ended up being purchased and built up. Not conquered. No, but you brought disease. Man, that has happened everywhere. Everywhere. And don't tell me about borders, because if you go to a Native American reservation, they gonna uphold their border. They protective of their border. So don't tell me that, we shouldn't have any borders, because no, every country has borders and everybody has the right to their own sovereignty. And if you're going to go into a country, you obey its laws, which means you enter peacefully. Or give me some money so that way, we can be all all in fairness. You want to be all inclusive? Fine. If you're going to give illegal immigrants, give those who've come here legally money. I'll wait. Come on. Give me some money. Oh, that's right, you won't. Because if you do things the right way, you're the one that gets punished, per se, because somebody did it the right way. But if you do it the wrong way, oh no, we'll give you the works. We'll give you money. We'll give you Medicaid. We'll give you, a cell phone. We'll give you a free place to live. We'll give you food stamps. So as long as you do it the wrong way, yeah, you get whatever you need. You do it the right way, you got to pay fine after fine after fine. The last bill I just paid last week was $1,400. I'm not getting that reimbursed. And I don't make much as a retired veteran. I'm medically retired, not even retired from the military. I'm just retired from, life. But I'm not getting nothing from the government. I'm not getting any assistance from the government. What about all-inclusive? Yeah, all-inclusive unless you're a conservative. All-inclusive unless you're a Christian. All-inclusive unless you're Jewish. We need to stop, though, because everything that's going on right now, people up in their feels, thinking that their feelings are legal ramification to be able to do whatever they want. You can't just do whatever you want just because you feel like it. And I hate having to come on here and this is how I have to spend my birthday, coming on here and talking about another tragedy, all because people think that they can do what they want and be in their feels. Oh, by the way, you notice I'm not wearing my ring that I usually wear? I finished yesterday. Last night at midnight. 1,300 miles in a year. It felt great. I cried. I legitimately cried when I had to hang up my ring, symbol of completion. I cried. It's a big accomplishment. But I hope everybody stays safe in the storm. We're getting ready for this massive ice storm to hit. I think we're going to be out of power for a couple days. I think it's going to be big. We're looking at they've upped the time when the ice is supposed to start falling, and it's extended well beyond the hourly forecast. It's supposed to start at about 5, and it's supposed to go until at least midnight Sunday night. So it doesn't go beyond midnight. So it looks like it could very well continue to snowfall. For more than 24 hours. If we get ice for more than 24 hours, I can't even imagine what things are going to look like. But we'll see what happens. We're praying about it. I hope everybody stays safe. If you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Happy birthday to me. If you want to reach out, leave me a comment, drop me an email. The email's in the description below, and I will see everybody, eventually. We'll see how things go and whether I report mid-storm or not, see if we have power, see if I have internet, and we'll play it by ear. But be in peace, and as Spock used to say, live long and prosper.